Thank you, Stephen. So next, it's my pleasure to introduce my colleague, Keenleyside, who's going to speak to us about efforts with respect to IUCN's program around Nature for All.
Thanks, Nadine. Hi, everybody. So you've seen me here before, and many of you probably know quite a bit about Nature for All already. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time going into what it is, but I want to give you a bit of an update, essentially, on what we've been involved in over the past year. So Nature for All, as most of you know, I'm guessing, and if you don't, come talk to me after if you're interested in more details. It's a global movement to inspire love of nature, led by the IUCN World Commission on Protected Areas and the IUCN Commission on Education and Communication. And I'm the co-chair on behalf of the World Commission on Protected Areas. It was launched at the 2016 IUCN World Conservation Congress and officially adopted as part of the IUCN 1 program. So broadly, we describe Nature for All as a global movement to inspire love of nature. Well, why? The goal of Nature for All fundamentally is to build the constituency of support for conservation, support and action to help us achieve our conservation goals. And how are we doing this? By raising awareness of nature and its values, and by facilitating opportunities for people from all walks of life to experience and connect with nature, to create a culture of conservation. Recognizing that for all the knowledge in the world, many people still make decisions on the basis of how they feel as well as what they know. And that the influencing our feelings in many cases is related to our sense of oneness, our connection with the natural world. When we feel we are part of nature, we act in its favor. So Nature for All is really working on, not exclusively, but to a large extent, evoking that emotional response. And at the same time, working with the education community and others on building awareness and understanding of nature and its values. So I want to just give you a bit of a highlight of what's been happening in the past year or so, as I said. We launched in 2016 at the World Conservation Congress, and the intent is to build a global coalition of partner organizations who would work together on scaling up our efforts to raise awareness and facilitate experience and connection with nature. Over the past year, we are now over 200 partners worldwide. I think it's about 220 actually. And they're from all IUCN regions and about 36 countries at the moment. This graph just gives you a sense of where they are. In Canada and elsewhere in North America is really in many ways the driving force behind the movement at the moment. So you can see that many of our partners are North American. But it's quite interesting, actually, to see how many that we are in all regions, and we're seeing a significant growth globally. So just to give you a sense of what this coalition of partners has been doing, we've been developing a variety of different resources and tools to enable, to share our work, to celebrate what we're doing, but to empower others around the world to understand some of the best practices for getting people into nature, for helping them understand its value, and for creating that excitement, that sense of love, support, oneness with the natural world. We've developed a Nature for All playbook, which is drawn very, very heavily upon Canada's Nature Playbook, which many of you have seen, that was led by the Canadian Parks Council. We've developed as a part of, in fact, in support of this past year's World Environment Day activities, which focused on connecting with nature, a curriculum source book for teachers to use globally, which provides lesson ideas related to many of the key areas of work of IUCN, including protected areas, but with a theme around connecting with nature running through it as well, really drawing upon many of the principles and strategies of Nature for All. So it deals with climate change, with water issues and so on, and how to teach these things in a way that is exciting for students. And part of what we're trying to do with Nature for All is to reach new audiences, to go beyond the traditional conservation community. And one of the ways we're doing that is with communication tools that are a little bit different. And one of the fun things that I've been a little bit involved in with other partners, and these are largely products developed in collaboration with a range of these partners, is comic books. A new way in my world anyway of communicating with and reaching audiences who may not be thinking about conservation but like to read and enjoy this form of communication. So it's really kind of fun to look at the different ways that we're communicating and sharing our message. This one, Anna's Forest, was developed by partners in Mexico, and it is really a lovely story. Nature for All shares the success stories of its partners and really is a way of sharing best practices. We have over 35 now collected globally, and all of these resources are on our website. Other ways of reaching new audiences include some really fun video projects. We have a song that's been developed and a music video that goes along with that. And you may be familiar with a video called Nature RX, which was a comedic video that went viral a couple of years ago. And the creator of Nature for RX has been working with us on a really cute video that features some mascots and humans interacting and trying to understand each other. So there are lots of fun tools that we can see, again, reaching people who may not normally be thinking about conservation as a way of building our constituency. We, as I mentioned, have over 200 partners globally, and we've just done a quick analysis of what their social media reach would be collectively. It's over 200 million people. And we have been actively trying to take advantage of the fact that this coalition has that reach to develop some innovative social media campaigns. And we do have a growing social media following. So those of you who are savvy in this area may want to connect with us and begin using that hashtag Nature for All as a way of bringing together additional partners and others who are interested in this whole area of work. I think what's most exciting for me, anyway, being Canadian, is that we've actually developed and established what is becoming a bit of a regional network here in Canada. These are the partners within Nature for All who are Canadian organizations. I think there are 37 now as of yesterday. This is an opportunity for this group of organizations to think about what they can do collectively as a coalition that they can't do individually or on their own to scale up the reach and impact of our efforts to connect people with nature. And it's what we've been doing. We've been working together to look at those opportunities. How can we use our collective voice, our collective reach to get beyond ourselves within the conservation community, help others understand the value of conservation, inspire them to act? How can we take advantage of the fact that we all share this goal in our own ways while continuing to work within our own structures, our own systems, our own organizations, on our own priorities, also find those ways to work collectively. It's been quite exciting to be involved on a somewhat smaller scale as well as on a global scale to look at these kinds of questions. So I'll just briefly give you a little bit more of an overview of what we've been doing in Canada. This coalition of Canadian partners met last April and established these 6 priorities really around growing this coalition in Canada, diversifying it, which I think is really important. And we all met yesterday, or many of us met yesterday, to look again at some of these priorities and get a little bit more specific on some of them. And on diversifying, I think it's quite interesting. We all know that we need to get beyond ourselves. We need to ensure that we're very inclusive in the way that we reach the, other sectors and members of the public in Canada. What's interesting at the same time, and you may have noticed it when you look at that list of partners, they are largely conservation organizations or youth-serving organizations. We don't have cities on board, for example. Indigenous organizations, while we are speaking to Indigenous people, we don't have formal partnerships with Indigenous organizations yet. And when we look at at the work we're doing, we see that we're engaging, for example, highly educated young people who already care about conservation. But are we engaging disenfranchised young people in the urban core? Are we looking at our programs in really critically and understanding where some of those gaps might be? So those are some of the things we talked about yesterday around diversification and inclusivity. I thought it was really quite interesting. So there's still work to do. But what's quite exciting is that we have a platform and a mechanism to have these conversations as a community. Clearly, we have a strong priority on communicating well amongst ourselves and looking for collaborative opportunities, and that was part of what we were discussing yesterday. We also recognize that there's a clear need for a very strong evidence base, not only to support the work that we're doing, but also to measure and evaluate its success. I'll just get back to that again a little bit later as I go on. And again, reaching and building the audience. At the moment, we have a fairly loose governance structure, and we're comfortable with that, but a somewhat longer-term priority is to begin to formalize it a little bit and look at sustainability in the long run. Parks Canada is providing the secretariat function at the moment, but that's likely not to continue forever. So we do need to look at how this might evolve over the longer term. So just a couple more practical things we've done. The Canadian Coalition has developed a prospectus that really describes what Nature for All is in Canada and what its goals are, and there are actually copies at the back there. They're also available on the website. And there's now a Canadian space on the Global Nature for All website. And as I mentioned, we've been looking at specific opportunities for collective impact and examining some of the collaborative initiatives that we might undertake. Some of those simply around things like social media, others around shared event strategies, for example, or specifically particular ways of reaching other groups, such as specific groups of youth, as I mentioned. So just looking ahead to 2018, and this is really at the global scale again. We are working on developing a synthesis of evidence that supports the notion that experiences and connections with nature lead to increased support and action for conservation. The evidence base is out there, but to the best of my knowledge, has never been a solid synthesis of that evidence. So we were actually bringing together more than 15 organizations worldwide to provide a variety of in-kind and cash support to developing a synthesis report that we're hoping will be launched in time for the Convention on Biodiversity SBSTA and also SBI, which is a subsidiary body on implementation, meetings this coming July, with a view of informing to a degree the post-2020 agenda on conservation to enable policy and decision makers to think about the importance of this whole sphere of connecting with nature in actually building that constituency that will help us deliver on our goals. As I mentioned, we have a beginnings of a national network here in Canada. We are also seeing interest in one developing in Australia. And I'm going to be going to the UK next week to meet with over 25 British organizations who are Nature for All partners to work with them to explore some of the similar ideas to those that we've been looking at here in Canada. How can we actually work together both at a national or regional level and globally to do more together than we could do on our own to connect people with nature? We continue to be involved by bringing different partners in different places to collaborate on a variety of meetings and events to understand various perspectives on nature connectedness, to share with each other some of those best practices and to look for opportunities to scale up our work. Many meetings coming up in the following year, which we'll be working with various sectors on this. These are just a couple of examples that are largely Canadian focused, but there are many others globally as well that we'll be involved in. For example, I mentioned the importance of urban youth, but urbanites in general. 80% of people in Canada and more than 50 around the world live in cities. So how do we reach and inspire our urban populations about nature? One of our main partners is ICLEI, which is the Local Governments for Sustainability Initiative. They bring mayors of cities around the world together, and we'll be having their World Congress in Montreal this year. So we're looking at engaging there to understand ways in which urban cities can help urban populations connect with nature, and to provide guidance from our network of partners on some of the best practices that they may be able to take forward. So you saw in the slide I presented who the Canadian partners are. If your organization isn't on that list, you might want to be. It's really easy to join Nature for All. It's an open process in which all the details are on the website and the link is there. It's a matter of thinking about what you can do to help contribute to its advancement, making a pledge to do that, and sharing your logo so that you can be identified as a part of this global movement. It's early days yet, but we're excited about where it will go, and it's great to be here. So thank you very much. Do you have time for questions, Nadine, or do you want to move on? Happy for questions if anyone has any.
Thank you very much. That's a great presentation. For many years, and I think everyone in this room, in many ways, have been trying to connect people with nature. And we have worked mostly on the knowledge piece. So people are aware, they know what's going on, they don't act on it. And in the last couple of weeks, I've been reading a lot about conservation psychology. And there's some psychologists that are coming in with a lot of examples with it's a process, and it looks quite easy to change behavior of people on their perspective. But we have not used that science because we're very good at looking at biology from biologists' perspective. So I will send you a couple of references. And it's just amazing because I just completed reading this on the plane coming in, and it's a recipe, the do and don't, and you go from this to this, and this is how you change people, perception, behavior, first step, second step, and this. So I will encourage everyone here to reach out to the psychologist because I think as biologists, we are failing really not connecting people with nature. They know, they value, but they don't act.
That's really helpful, and thank you very much. I'd love to receive those reports. Conservation, a little bit of a synthesis of the conservation psychology literature will be part of the evidence synthesis report that I was talking about. And on that note, if anyone else has related published literature, unpublished literature, anecdotal information related to this subject, please let me know, because I think this will be a great opportunity to bring this kind of information into a single place where we can share it with the public and with decision makers. So thanks, Kamal. That's very helpful. Hi, Alison.
Hi, Karen. On the same note, I just wanted to remind you of a piece of work that CPAWS did in the lead up to the World Parks Congress with the University of Northern British Columbia, which was exactly that kind of, I mean, it's not the be-all and end-all, and it's a little out of date now, but it's a starting point. So there is a report that pulled together that evidence of taking it to that next level of connecting in order to build a culture of conservation. So.
Yeah, what I really liked about that report was that it in part looked at the types of experiences that make a difference, and that I think is one of the people on our working group on the evidence synthesis is just finished his PhD in that subject. So it should be really, I'm hoping, a fairly solid piece.
Yeah, and really excited that you're doing that, because it's a really helpful piece of work. I think that'll help us all in our work.
Just to reassure everyone, it will definitely identify the gaps too. I mean, it's intended to help us understand what else needs to be done in this area.
I just have a quick comment.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Hi, Luba.
On this side, hi. Just to extend further on the comments about psychology of educating and persuasion. One thing that I just offer is the importance of not imposing what to think, but how to think. Mm-hmm. A lot of the strength is in the how, and a lot of the work that IUCN does is the basis for, in terms of coming to an informed decision about how you feel individually about conservation, is having that platform from which to leap in terms of your perception. So I just want to underscore that, yes, there's many persuasive ways of doing things. However, allowing people to make up their own minds in terms of, on the basis of the information they have and their emotional response to that, is extremely important to bear in mind in terms of any kind of strategies, along the line of persuasion. Thanks.
Yeah, that's helpful, Luba. Thank you. Okay, two more. Hi, Stephen.
I wanted to just follow up on your comment about the next generation of ACHI targets and what you folks were thinking about with regard to that. Of course, in the existing set, Target 1 is all about this kind of work, Nature for All. So are you thinking about making it more specific or elaborating on it? Or
So Target 1 right now, yeah, it all depends how the framework evolves, Stephen, I think. But Target 1 at the moment is focused on the awareness of biodiversity and its values and the actions that people can take. So it's focused on that awareness piece. And I think what we're seeing with Nature for All, what we're hearing is that it's a little bit different. It's not just awareness. It is actually about reintegrating nature back into our lives. It's that change in culture in a way in which we truly feel that connection that we are a part of nature and that the decisions we make are influenced by that. And I don't want to suggest that awareness, knowledge is not important. It fundamentally is, and the reviews of the evidence indicate that it is actually imperative for us to act. It's just that we're suggesting that the more that we have the emotional piece, the more likely we are to actually take advantage of the knowledge that we have. And I also just want to briefly mention, while I'm still here, that one of the things we talked about yesterday was the importance of this initiative in Canada as a potential engagement tool around subjects like the Pathway to Canada Target 1 that we'll be talking about this afternoon. So these are all, related. It's not a separate entity on its own, really something that is seen as helping us achieve those goals.
So I went to my luggage, and that's the book that I was referring to. So the information about this will be available on our the website or in the minutes from this meeting. But it's Fostering Sustainable Behavior, and the guy has been working on community-based social marketing.
Oh,
and
great.
I really enjoy reading this. Super easy. A lot of example on the conservation space, and I hope that you will enjoy it.
Thank you so much. I will get out of the way and let others continue.